Hey folks, it's Tim DeMella again. Okay, so what's the question here? Can you still be a Christian and recover from religion? Well, the answer is yes and no. It all depends on the perspective of how you see being a Christian. Being a Christian is growing up in the spirit of unconditional love and knowing you have that within you and following it, because that spirit will lead you out of a literal religion, a religion that wants to continue to stay your parent, and get you to and ask you to follow it to mature, spiritually mature. There are going to be religions. I have been in several denominations throughout my life, and you're just going to have to mature past them. These are mainly conditionally loving denominations, and I've always said that the best church is the church that wants to see less of you as you move along in your spiritual maturity. What does this mean? It means that the church is there to help you fundamentally understand unconditional love and help you then get to the point of taking a leap of faith in yourself to create the church within you. And then, like any parent, you're supposed to, during adolescence, you have that part, and I talked about this in the last video, you have that part where it's natural to want to leave your parents and go out on your own and become your own adult. Okay, that's the natural progression. And same thing in the spirit. That's the spirit wants to do that for you. Most of the churches I've been into, the denominations, they don't want that. They believe that if you don't follow a certain rules, certain way of doing things, then you're lost. And they'll try to do anything to get you back, because they believe you're lost and you're not going to be saved. This is a very and they believe this. That's the problem. And it's so they're so institutionalized that there's no other way of thinking with them. It's black and white, and as we know, life is not black and white, and life is life, and you have to come to understand that it's not perfect, it's not simplistic, although as you mature in your spirit and become confident in who you are and find your true self, it does get simpler. It actually does get simpler, because you find out that, I know I found out that maybe 95% of the stuff that's going on in the world is just a distraction from who you really are, from the truth of who you are and the road and the path you're going down. So getting back to the question about then how does this tie into, can you still become a Christian? Still be a Christian. What kind of Christian? A true Christian, which has the roots in unconditional love, or a false Christian who has the roots in conditional love. The conditional love is what I call in the last video, literal interpretation of the Bible. Okay? And that's conditional love. It's rules over rules over rules, and you follow this, and you need to follow this to a T. Isn't that what kind of parents kind of do until you reach a certain age? Because there was a law, and you didn't know how to think for yourself. So they had to have rules and laws and everything in place. And then once you're able to understand and see things for what they are, then you're able to grow, and if they allow you to be free to grow in the way that you're supposed to grow in the spiritual maturity. So which Christian do you want to be? Do you want to be the true Christian, to where you allow people to continue and venture on in their own maturity, or a false Christian where you want to stay parent all the time and tell them this is how you do it, and if you don't do it like this, then you don't belong to this family? When you recover from religion, that's the first one. The literal interpretation is usually what you're talking about when you're trying to recover from religion. Okay. The problem is that that's also sometimes seen as black and white. Either I'm religious or I'm an atheist, and you swing the pendulum from one direction all the way to the other. You go from passive all the way to aggressive. And some people, they stay there. They stay aggressive because they can't. They're just like, I'm not going to be passive anymore. No way. I'm not going to be religion anymore. No way. But what they have seen in the past, and what has hurt them to a great extent, a betrayal in a sense, and I understand this because I've been through it, is that you're talking about the abusive religion, the abusive church, which, I mean, I'll be honest with you, I guess I've been in many, many denominations and stuff in Christianity, and I haven't really found one that wasn't like that, to at least some extent. Okay. But that is not the church of Jesus, or the Spirit. That is not the church. That is not. For the most part, anytime somebody comes up with something that is very wonderful, and they pass on, and somebody else comes and takes their place, usually it's not as wonderful anymore, because there's an ego that now has come into play, a power trip, if you will. So really, I believe that after Jesus died, it was not going to do well. Okay. Because ego came into the picture. Peter, they took that literal when Jesus said, "Be my church." I talked about this in the previous video. And Peter was as far as spiritually, probably the worst spiritually of all the disciples, apostles. And then he became the father of the church. And again, then he went from absolutely dismissive to all the way to totally fanatical. And see, that's what happens when you swing this pendulum. In the worldly sense, and thinking the worldly sense, there's this pendulum, and it's two-dimensional, meaning what you see on the page is what you see on the page. It's two-dimensional. Okay, that's a literal interpretation. What you see on the page, black and white writing, what you see on the page, and it's a pendulum, and it goes like this. Okay, it goes from passive to aggressive, aggressive to passive. It goes from literal, a fanatic literal, which we would call a fanatic religious, a devout, to all the way to the other side, what you call an atheist, one that doesn't believe at all, nothing. And then you have agnostic, somewhere in the middle. To go from one end all the way to the other end is not healthy, because what you've passed rest, and this is rest. But people who are fanatic here and then have a lot of turmoil and anxiety within themselves, they don't see rest. They don't understand what rest is, and they don't see it. So it automatically just swings to the other side instead of having a controlled descent and saying, okay, here we go. Now this is balance. All right. They can't do that. And that's why you need the Spirit Christ. Not the letter Christ, but the Spirit, the literal Christ. But you need the Spirit Christ. The Spirit Christ is the truth. It's unconditional love, and you need to understand what unconditional love is before you can understand the Spirit. The Spirit is what helps you have a controlled descent into rest, into balance. Because the Spirit, that's what unconditional love is. The Spirit is balance. The Spirit is at rest. Okay? And it helps you get to rest as well, so that you can, it's kind of like your Prozac in a sense, spiritual Prozac, and so that you can then mature in an assertive manner, not an aggressive or you can't progress spiritually if you're aggressive or you're a victim. You see yourself as a victim. There's no progression, because what you wind up in either one, you wind up in what's called pity and shame, and that doesn't belong in you. You pity yourself. You feel ashamed of yourself. It doesn't belong there. Somebody put that there and made you feel that way while growing up. The Spirit would never do that to you. So, and the Spirit's within you. So you have to get in touch with that. And it will bring you into the assertive, the balance, and so that you can then go forward. Okay? And that forward is forward into maturity, out of childhood and into your own adolescence, and then into your own adulthood. And I talk about that, and I talk about steps on how to do that, 12 steps on how to do that. And it's not the 12 steps that everybody's familiar with. These are different 12 steps that has worked for me, that I have seen over my past 30 years. That's how you can progress. and it takes you out of that 2D pendulum, and it brings you into a 3-dimensional understanding. Okay, because that's what we're all 3-dimensional. We have a width, a length, and a depth. Okay, we just don't have a length and a width. We have a length, width, and depth. Okay, so it brings you deep. It brings you deeper, and it brings you into a depth that hits home, to where it's what you're supposed to do anyway. But you can't do it You can't do it by yourself. You can't do it just by pure willpower either, because that's ego. You can't do it by yourself. You have to have something that's out of yourself, out of your conscience, your conscious, not your conscience, but your conscious, of only what you can see. You have to have faith, and faith in something that can see way farther than you can, and that comes more from an unconscious rather than the conscious view. So you need something outside of that conscious view, or you're just going to keep on spinning your wheels in mental illness, spinning your wheels in the world, and trying to find answers from the world. And the world is this little interpretation of things, what you might want to call religion, literal religion, and there's no answers there. There's no answers there, because all there is this fighting, battle, continued war against one another. You're never going to find peace. So you have to go to a spirit that is unconditional love that's within you, and you have to go by that, follow that unconditional love. That's how you get out, and that's how you're able to progress and mature. Does that sound like Christianity? That's what's called, to me, what I call spiritual Christianity, not religious Christianity. And I believe the spiritual Christianity is who Jesus or Christ was, and is the spirit, in the spirit of God. Okay, so, and what is, and then you say, okay, well, what is God? And you go, is there really a God? There's really no God. Again, are you talking about the literal God, the religious God, or are you talking about the spiritual God? Spiritual God becomes your God. The literal God is the God that everybody in the world, people in the world, and the institutions and religions want you to believe, but their God. But your God is not their God. Although I believe that there is a God, but it's all how you perceive this God. I choose to see this God as unconditional love, not a person or an entity looking down at you and stuff like that. That's literal. That's childlike. That's what a child would think. I'm talking about in the spiritual vernacular of God, a consciousness, whatever you want to call it. But it is what I believe is unconditional love itself. It's not only a noun, it's a verb. I love you is the same thing as I God you. It's what it is. It's what makes the world, not that world, but the world go around. The life, it's the life force, okay, within you, and it sends out a spirit that brings you to it when you can't do it yourself. And it calls upon you. And everybody has this. See, everybody has a pureness within them. Okay, up here, I believe it's up in here, where most people are back here. wallowing back here. And so that life force is a lifeline. God sends that spirit to retrieve you. And everybody has that, because everybody has a pure portion of their soul, if you want to call it, that does that. It's survival. And all you have to do is listen and know that it's there, believe that it's there. And then you'll be able to and define and understand what unconditional love is, so that you can identify it when it comes. When that spirit, you can hear that calling, you can hear that spirit within you say, "Oh, that's what that calling. Oh, that's what I've been hearing," and then you're able to go with that. That's recovery. That's recovering from religion, but still staying a Christian. And I'm not really happy with the term Christian, because it has a negative connotation, which Christian and religion kind of go together, but they're not the same. There's true Christian, which is the same thing as true self. You find out when you're whole that you're a unique self. You're a unique self. And you find out your uniqueness within you, and you have a confidence of that uniqueness. Okay? You're not conforming, which is what religion does. So you're not a Christian that's conforming to a religion or a church or whatever. Okay? You're a spiritual being. But if you want to call yourself a Christian, then call yourself a Christian, but understand there's two Christians. There's a literal Christian, and then there's a spiritual Christian. The literal Christian's conditional love, and not following the actual spirit within them. So they stay in the world. Some people call them organized religions, whatever. And then there's the spiritual Christian. You have to decide which one you want to be. I'd rather follow an unconditionally loving spirit, which I've been doing for 30 years, than a conditionally loving spirit. So, which I did, a conditional loving religion, which I did growing up and everything. Idolized my father, idolized a church, a thing that had all the rules and everything, and in other words, idolized arrogant, narcissistic, sociopathic behavior. Because my thinking growing up is these people had it all together. They know everything. They're wise beyond wise and all that. And then you find out when you go down the spiritual Christian path that these people are not very wise at all. They did themselves in. They're really they set themselves up to just stay blind, and stay in the world. And this world this is what in the Bible Jesus called the world. And so if you want to recover from religion, recover what you're talking about, well, what I believe you're asking is, I want to get out of the childish way people think, which is religion, which is that literal interpretation, and I want to get into my own understanding and my own uniqueness. And you're going to find out that 95%, very high percentage of people who are religious will excommunicate you by not being the saint that you should be. And of course, we're not all saints. We are human beings that that understand love, know love, and getting connected, and really getting connected with the love that's within us, and not just pretending that we love people and we love things and innocent things and things like that. And that we don't have any problems, and we don't have any. And there's no need to talk about these things because it's just sinful, and we are sinful, and we should be ashamed of each little sin we do and all that. That's what's mentally ill. That's what brings about mental illness. I talked about some of that in my last video. That's what mental illness, that just promotes mental illness more and more and more and more. These little religions are what I called sin factories, because they need you to sin so that you continue to stay under them. Because if you went out on your own and did this, which they try to make you feel guilty for, going out on your own and following the unconditional loving spirit, which they can't fathom, they try to guilt you. And a lot of times they're pretty successful at it. But what changes is when you turn the corner or switch. You take the leap of faith. It's like a switch. You take the leap of faith and you start going into the spiritual Christ rather than staying in the literal Christ, literal Jesus. You're going to a spiritual Christ. Okay? So that's transcending. All throughout the Bible, you can, well, especially the New Testament, you can see the writings, and some of the writings, as you go further in your spiritual journey, you'll be able to weed out what was written by a person with literal interpretations and ulterior motives, versus a spirit that just wants you to be free and find a love. And you'll be able to see clearly more and more of this, and you'll know what I'm talking about. So you'll be able to weed out the truth, the literal child make-believe Christianity from the first stage, what I talk about in the previous video, first stage. And when you get into the second stage, take that leap of faith and get into the second stage of adolescence, you start seeing things clearly. Although it would be very hard in the beginning, because it's always hard to weed things out. It's very confusing. That's why sometimes you need help through therapy with somebody who is unconditionally loving, somebody who is who does not judge, okay, has sound judgment, which is wisdom, but doesn't judge you of what I call prejudging. That's the before sound judgment. Prejudging, which is before trying to understand who you are within. And prejudging is the same thing as prejudice. So whoever doesn't want to try to understand you in here, they have a prejudiced view of who you are and have absolutely no interest in trying to know and understand who you are. These are the people that Paul, although I don't necessarily agree with everything Paul says, but in the Bible, that he's trying to say, don't yoke yourself to these people, because all they're trying to do is hold you back. Jesus said the same thing when a person came to him and said, I want to follow you. And Jesus says, well, then come. And he said, well, let me go bury my father first. And he says, let the dead bury the dead. And what he's talking about is people, let the person whose literal interpretation in the world these Pharisees and Sadducees and all this, let them all bury themselves. Let the people, the worldly people, the people in the world bury themselves. Come follow me. Come, the Spirit. I'm the Spirit within you. Come follow me. And this is the. He's not saying come follow me, and I'll give you all these rules and everything like that. He says come follow me, and you'll understand what I'm trying to say when your own spirit, when you'll be, so that you'll be able to connect with your own spirit after I leave. So that's the spiritual vernacular of the Bible. So what does it sound like? Does it sound like you can recover from religion but stay a Christian? Yes. Because you recover, but how do you recover from religion by staying a Christian? By following the spiritual Christ. By following the spiritual Christ in here. The Spirit within you. Your spirit within you. Because everyone has been given a spirit that knows them inside out. And wants to, through unconditional love, take you from where you are in the world to freedom within yourself in peace. Okay, so you can still, if you do that and you follow the Spirit, then you're still a Christian, but you're not a religious Christian. You're a true Christian. A true Christian. Okay, true Christian is a spiritual Christian. False Christian is or a make-believe, has all these rules and everything in the religion, is in the denomination and so forth that you have to abide by, which is somebody else's conscience. Whoever started that denomination way back when, it was a lot of these people. If you go back, they're sociopaths. They have killed many, many, many people in the name of God, and they didn't think twice about it. That's a sociopath. Okay, so follow this. So if you follow the Spirit, the unconditionally loving Spirit, it will take you out of religion to help you see everything clearly. That's recovering from religion, and so it will help you recover from religion. You say, but so I get to keep the Spirit? Yes, because everybody has the Spirit. It's given to you from the beginning. You just were blinded by it, blinded to it by people who were not connected and needed you to follow them to feel good about themselves. Okay, and that's where a lot of mental illness comes from, because you feel so guilty for not doing that, and people gaslighting you and all that you're so torn between leaving them and staying that a lot of people, they do commit suicide because of this. And but I'm showing you a way out, and go in my earlier video, which is how I got out of the religion. Okay, this literal interpretation, make believe, and all that religion, and it makes you, and it goes through a lot of, and you grieve because sometimes you see yourself as, so it was so much easier when I was just in the religion. They told me what to do and I did it, and that's it. And it was so much easier that way. Yeah, but you weren't free. You were, when you grow up and you say, well, I want to be freer, and they say, well, it's my way or the highway. Then what do? If you say it's the highway, well, I've always been in religion So I don't know what the highway leads me to. I don't get it. Well, I gave you the highway in the last video, at least my highway. That might help you in your highway. So I show you a way out of there, and then to mature in the natural way that you were supposed to mature from when you were born. And so you kind of have to be reborn. And what that means is you have to say, okay, look, all my life in my childhood, and you could be 30 years old and still a child, in this religion institution I was in, family institution, whatever you want to call it, whatever institution you're in. And you know, I drank the Kool-Aid, and I'm like, well, how do I get out of it? Well, by realizing that there's two consciences. There's your conscience and their conscience. And if you've been living their conscience all your life, then you need to be reborn in a sense of saying, okay, that was my past life, and let's get rid of their conscience altogether. Okay, because I don't know what's true from false. Okay, and let me start from scratch of no conscience, or just the fundamental, you don't go out and just kill anybody and stuff like that. This is what I said in my last video. You have a fundamental value system within yourself, but what's their rules, and what are the real rules? And the real rules is when you take that leap of faith and you go into your adolescence and you follow your own spirit of unconditional love, and it will show you what's true and what's false, what was holding you back and what wasn't holding you back. And I think you'll find out that the fundamentals weren't holding you back, but as you got deeper in your religion and deeper into your denomination or institution, whatever, life, and their way of doing things and their dysfunction, that's what was holding you back. And you'll see things clearly after you take that leap of faith. You'll go through that very, very confusing time once you do it. That's why sometimes you need help by like I was talking before, a therapist to help you sort through it. But a good therapist will help you get in touch with your own spirit. A bad therapist is a religious therapist. It's the same thing as a religious therapist. They have all the answers. They know, and so this is what you need to do, and I'll fix you. No, there's only one thing that fixes you, and that's your own spirit. That's your own spirit. There's nothing out in the world that can ever fix you, because there's nothing out in the world that knows you and will ever know you inside and out better than your own spirit. So a good therapist will just help you stay connected to that spirit, so that you can be connected with it and go with it, okay, and not be distracted by all this in the world and everything. And so, but I should do this and I should do that. That's the worldly thing. Okay, should. You'll find all this out when you go through therapy. But anyway, yes. So the bottom line, yes, you can stay a Christian and recover from religion at the same time. But how do you do it? You had to decide whether you're going to stay a literal Christian, which is a childish Christian with make-believe rules. Some of these rules maybe you put on yourself too, rather than just the church, and they're make-believe. They're not based in reality. Or you go as a spiritual Christian, and discover what unconditional love really means in the spirit of that, and that's what you follow. By taking that leap of faith and progressing, transcending your childhood into your spiritual adolescence, and then finally in your spiritual adulthood. That's how you recover from religion while staying a true Christian. A true Christian will take you to your true self and your uniqueness and your own confidence within, and then you'll be free. Okay, so I hope that helped. If you need a little bit more help, go back to go back to my other video and listen to that. And I think it'll give you it'll be a good addition to this video. Okay, so that's it. So leave a comment, subscribe. That would be great. Again, I don't get any money from this, but subscribe so I know that you're locked in, you know, that you're really interested in having more videos like this, or at least comment, or click views, like, so I know. And if you have questions, ask questions, give comments, because then I can make videos off of those comments, videos off of those questions, as well as I can answer them and not try to fix and not try to tell you my, you need to follow me and stuff like that, without being a religion of my own ego, and but just to offer you some wisdom that I've gained. And that's really what it comes down to, is offering other people their experience and wisdom, whether you wish to take it or not. But at least you're not alone, and that somebody has gone by a similar path, and not the same. Nobody does this exact same, but in generally we can all go down very, very similar, if not the same path in general. Detail is what life is all about, and that detail is unique to each one of us. So, okay, and as we're connected with our unique spirit, we see life in a certain way, and we experience it in a certain way. So, okay, so I'll see you next time, and I do love you, and try to love yourself too. Okay, it's really important to do that. Try to do that. Try to relax if you can. I do compose music, by the way, and I'll leave the link down below. I have, if you want to go to my channel, it's classical music mainly, and it's called, my channel is called Tim's Original Lo-Fi Music, L-O-F-I, Tim's Original Lo-Fi Music. So it's, I make the music. I try to do the best I can in recording and mastering it, but I'm no professional when it comes to that. So you might hear little dings here or there, but at least you know it's not AI. So anyway, okay, I love you. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.